who will share with us, and on his topic, which I don't know what the topic was, but you'll tell us all about it, or whatever you want to talk about. Great Sheet Absence. Would you like to be timed?
Yes, please.
I do believe, is it a 50? I'm asking you, and I have the format. I think it is. So do you want, how would you like that broken down?
Just let me know when 15 is up.
Okay, would anyone like to serve as Margie, spiritual timekeeper? So let you know when 15 is over? Okay. I'll take it away.
My name is Richard. I'm a compulsive eater.
Hi, Richard.
And like you all, I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the Gray Sheet. I write those meals down. I commit them to my sponsor. I don't eat between no matter what. And abstinence is my primary purpose today. And abstinence needs to be my primary purpose because it's the most important thing that I do. And I have a lot of years of bitter experience of being in and out of Gray Sheet. So I never want to forget that, like I said to someone last night, when I stop hanging out with you guys, I gain 100 pounds. So that's really important for me to remember that. And I don't want to minimize the fact that it's you guys that are a big part of how I stay abstinent. So, yes, I believe in a God that's personal to me. Yes, I believe in serving our community, but you guys help me stay abstinent, so that's a big part of it. I've been abstinent since December 3rd, 2012, and I have a sponsor, and she has a sponsor, and I have a home group in New York, which is the Harlem meeting. We meet Saturdays at 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m., and we have a good time. We have lunch after the meeting, and it's the best Gray Sheet meeting in the world. And if you don't think that your Gray Sheet meeting is the best meeting in the world, then I believe that you should try to make your Gray Sheet meeting the best meeting in the world. So I was asked to talk about letting go, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience, but I'm not going to give a drunkalogue because that's not what we're here for. But I would like to just talk about something that my first spiritual experience was 5 years before I found any 12-step rooms. It was 1997, and I was at a Fish concert in Limestone, Maine, and I was tripping my balls off on acid, and I was at this concert, and maybe it was the second set, I don't know, but Trey Anastasio was playing his guitar, and it was just, amazing, and I really hit a peak, and it was during this, and I mean, it's years later I would read that, Bill Wilson experimented with LSD because they were trying to figure out how could you just get regular people to have a spiritual awakening, in our second step, because a lot of men and women were not able to get that. So, it makes total sense to me. People have these spiritual experiences under the influence of these chemicals. So, I'm standing there in Limestone, Maine. I'm tripping my face off. And this is 1997, 5 years before I got into any sort of recovery. And I was able to see very clearly, because I was morbidly obese at the time, and I'm like 350 pounds, hot as hell in Limestone, Maine, with thousands of other people. And for the first time, I was able to see that it wasn't just my horrible, body destroyed by all these things, morbidly obese, which I thought was absolutely useless. It wasn't just my body, and it wasn't just this terrible mind that I knew I had, this awful mind, this mind that would always lie to me, and this mind that would just twist and turn, and all the darkness and all the self-hatred and all the blame game, and the world owes me a living, and if only this happened, everything would be okay. So I knew there was more to that, and for the first time at that concert, I was able to see that I also had a spirit. And I also was able to see that the self is a costume. And years later in recovery, I would realize that, like, we play these roles, like we wear our, selves as if they're a costume. And, our literature talks about playing the role that's assigned. And, as I get deeper and deeper into this process, into these steps, into this way of life, I start to see myself more and more on pages 60 to 61 of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I see that, I'm that guy. Even 12, almost 13 years sober, even almost 3 years abstinent, I see my ego reconstructing itself in recovery, and that's why, for me, it's important that I have a frequent experience with these steps, over and over again, maybe once a year, revisit, the 12 proposals, see where I'm at, because my biggest problem, yes, I have a mind that is, will always lie to me. Yes, I have a body that if I put sugar in my body, I'm going to want more, and that's not going to be a good deal. But I have this ego that will constantly try to reconstruct itself. And that's, the work. That's the never-ending work of this 12-step process. So, some of my current experiences with letting go is that, I find myself, stone cold abstinent, trying to live this way of life. But, what I have to let go of is, my agendas, and I have an agenda even in 12-step recovery. I constantly am contending with this whole, what's self-seeking, what is truly selfless. So, I just want everybody to know that, my ego is just off the charts if I'm not, if I fall asleep, So that's why I have to do the steps, because I need to wake up because I fall asleep, So I'm going through the work again, and a couple of weeks ago in July, I just had such a profound third step experience, because I realized that for like the last, 6 months, a year, like I've been living on pages 60 to 61 with my sponsees. And let me tell you exactly what it looks like. So I have sponsees, and I'm not gonna sit here and say, beat my chest and tell you how many I have, but I have a bunch, so that's like what I need to do, because I need to work with others. So I suddenly realized that, like, I'm not letting my sponsees be newcomers, because I have an agenda, because I'm Richard Oliver. And I'm a gray sheet rock star. So the agenda that I'm setting with my sponsees is, not only do you have to learn how to weigh and measure, but you also have to do as much service as I do. And if you don't do that, that there's going to be a problem. So I have this agenda with my sponsees. They don't know about the agenda. It's all going on in my head. But I'm like secretly like judging my sponsees, like they should be doing this, they should be doing that. So I'm needling and prodding and nudging, and then suddenly I realize, like, I just got to let these guys be newcomers, and they just have to learn how to weigh and measure. And there's two situations which kind of came to pass, and I was happy that they did come to pass, but I had one guy who, because I'm the guy, I was taught in Alcoholics Anonymous that you have to walk up to a person at a meeting. If I'm going to wait for someone to walk up to me and ask for help, and they're just coming in off the street, I'm going to be a very, unhappy camper, because, that's not the way it works. If somebody looks like they're new, and in Greysheeters Anonymous, it's really, it's quite obvious who's new. It's usually the person that's, like I was, very overweight. I walk up to that person in the meeting, and I say, hey, how are you? So that's what I was taught to do, So that kind of, what happened is that I walked up to this guy, or actually somebody called me, and she said, I'm going to connect you with this friend of mine. He really needs help, and he tried OA for like 28 seconds, and that whole thing. And then I met this guy at the meeting in New York City on a Friday night, and I started him off, and everything was great. But he kind of mentioned to me at the time in passing. He said, "Oh, I kind of like smoke pot once in a while," and. Kinda, yeah. And, so, like, at the time, I was so gung-ho to get this guy started that I just kind of, like, I went into complete denial. I was like, well, let's revisit that after day one. And we never revisited it because, usually when people smoke pot, they don't, even if they're new, they probably don't tell a lot of people about it. So I was just, here's the delusion. The delusion is that I was hoping that the glory and amazingness of abstinence would overshine his need to smoke pot once in a while. But it came up months and months later, and then a couple of weeks ago, he texted me late at night, and he said, "I'm sorry I didn't call on time." That was another problem. And he said, I'm falling on my face over here. I just got a new phone. Something in that text reminded me of like, the kind of language that you use when you take a lot of ecstasy. So I texted him back and I said, just so you know, ecstasy is not on the gray sheet. And I thought it was funny. I thought it was a funny text. And then he wrote me back and he's like, "Oh, is that true for about ecstasy? I just want to know for my information." And I'm like, is he really asking that question seriously? And then we went back and forth, and then he said to me the thing that was unfortunate, but he said to me, "I just want you to know, like I told you, I'm still smoking pot once in a while." And then that was the great thing for me, because it was at that point when I was able to say, well, I cannot co-sign that. I'm in AA, and I'm in Gray Sheet, and that, in my opinion, I don't care what you guys think, but I'm not sponsoring that. Marijuana is, they don't mention marijuana specifically on the Gray Sheet, but I'm not sponsoring a guy who's smoking pot. Nor do I conceive how you could possibly smoke pot if you're a compulsive eater.
Yeah.
How do you pull that off? I'd love to know. So I was able to let go of that, but, it made me see that, in my gung-ho-ness to start this guy off, maybe there needed to be an additional question. But, but what it shows to me is that, my passion for this program is really important, and it sustains me, and it's an energy that I don't want to lose, because I'm the guy that lost my passion for this program after 2 years, and suddenly you guys are crazy. And you guys know, like, it's real easy for you to be a committed member of Greysheeters Anonymous, and then the next morning you wake up and everybody in Greysheeters Anonymous is crazy. How does that happen? How does that maneuver happen? But that's happened to me a bunch of times, and what it looks like, is that I love working with others, because every possible, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous talks about a lurking notion, a reservation, and I truly want to believe that every reservation, every possible escape hatch, I've already done it. Weigh in a measurement of exception, I've already done it. Going to another program, because that other program, I was told you don't have to weigh and measure in all conditions. I've done that. Been there, done that, So I'm leaving Gray Sheet, and I'm going to go to that other program that I've heard about. Good reason to go to another program, because it's easier, softer. That seems like a real logical decision. But I've been there, done that. Leave Gray Sheet because of a particular food item. Been there, done that. Leave Gray Sheet because I didn't want to make a phone call. Been there, done that. Leave Gray Sheet because I was in an untenable travel situation. Been there, done that. Left Gray Sheet because my girlfriend at the time didn't like the lack of spontaneity. Been there, done that. So every conceivable escape hatch I've already gone through, and I'd like to believe that is an incredible defense against the first bite. So that is why I do Gray Sheet the way that I do it. But one of the things that I had to let go of in recent history was about a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, I was unable to do 2 programs the way that I like to do 12-step programs, which is, to the hilt and rock star ways, So I like to do 12-step recovery as if I'm Gene Simmons from Kiss. I don't know. So I'm in AA and I'm in Gray Sheet, and I can't do both really as amazingly as I want to, and that was a source of conflict. And then, like, last summer, I just kind of like had all these resentments that I was nursing about AA, because, and this is really what's going on in my mind, the people in my local area, they don't appreciate me. They can't see how great I am. They can't see what I've done for them. They didn't come to my anniversary. So I'm nursing all these resentments against AA. So even though there is that conflict of can't do two programs the way you want to do them, really why I'm not going to AA meetings, and that's a decision I made. I said, I'm not going to AA meetings anymore. I'm just going to do Gray Sheet, blah, blah, blah. And I called people up, and people were willing to co-sign that. They're like, you're not saying you're not an alcoholic anymore, right? I was like, no, I'm still an alcoholic, but Gray Sheet gives me everything I need, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not a foolish person. I'm definitely a delusional person. I'm definitely an egotistical person, but I'm not a foolish person. But I started to, so I did only Gray Sheet for this whole calendar year. So could you just give me 5 more minutes?
Yep.
So then I started to hear people talking about how happy they are when they supplement Gray Sheet meetings with AA meetings, and I started to hear over and over again, duh, this is AA for food, and I've always gone to AA meetings, so what the hell am I doing? And P.S., I have an AA meeting like a block and a half from my house, right? And I'm not going to it, right? So this summer, I made a list of things to do over the summer, and one of them was go to more live meetings, and I started going to AA meetings every night, and I've never been happier. And it's the same people from last year, the same people that didn't appreciate me back then, and, it's just, I'm hearing what I need to hear. I go to AA meetings. I might even get a job in AA, but I need to go to AA meetings. I need to go to Gray Sheet meetings. I need to go to AA meetings. I need to hear the language of the heart. I need to hear people talking about these steps and traditions that have saved my life. Another thing that recently I've had to let go of is I'm married to a Greysheeter, which is amazing. One of the greatest things about being married to somebody who's in this program is that food prep is we got it down, and it's so much fun and it's great. But one of the things that has been not even hard, because my wife takes it in stride, but one of the things that has made our marriage that much better is the fact that we are both invested in this way of life, and my wife sponsors women, and that's an awesome thing, and we inspire each other and all that kind of stuff. But my wife has a condition as a result of her compulsive overeating that doesn't allow her to lose weight as quickly as other people have. So we both collectively have had to let go of the experience of having, a rapid transformation. So, the unfortunate thing about that is that this condition that she has also is contributing to us not being able to have a child when we want to have a child, because it's all intermeshed with the how can I say this, girly parts. Mm-hmm. So it's been an incredible journey to talk about it out loud, and I say this a lot now because I want to put it out there, as pretentious as it sounds, to the universe, that we want to have a child, both of us, and yet it's going to happen when God deems it appropriate, and it's going to happen when and if God wants us to have a child, we will have a child. But right now, we can't have a child because my wife is not ready to have a child, even though she's Gray Sheet abstinent. So one of the great things about letting go is that I'm letting go of the results, but what it's doing for me as a hopeless compulsive overeater, as an alcoholic of the I'm a chronic alcoholic. I'm obviously a chronic compulsive eater. But what it's doing for me is that it's allowing me to get more and more invested in all the things that I have to do to become a better person, work with others, do this program, do all this stuff. Because what I can tell you honestly is that when I first got sober, I never in a million, trillion, billion years would have said I want to be a father. Because when I first got sober, it was so about me. I was so wrapped up in my life and my plans and my designs. why would I want to be a father? You know? But things happen. God puts things in your life. And my sister had a baby a little bit more than a year ago. And, you know, when that happened, it was just like, oh my God. You know, like, could I pull that off? Could I do that? Mm-hmm. And it's only because of you guys' program and God that I'm able to be just slightly less selfish and self-centered than I used to be, to the extent that I could honestly say, yes, I could probably pull that off. I could probably be a good dad. And it's always been about breaking that cycle, the family cycle of use and abuse. And, you know, in no uncertain terms do I say to myself, I'm going to be a hell of a better father than my old man was. Yes, you know, because I can speak the language of the heart. You know, yes, I don't have to speak the way that my father. Now, that's not to say that my father my father loved me unconditionally. I just didn't like the way he said things. So I could be better than he was, and I could be the father that I always wanted to have. So, thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Richard. Thank you so much. Wonderful to hear you. I think now we do our sharing. It's time for positive pitches on Greysheet apps. Positive pitches.